Isn't that the idea? I mean, what would you have them do? But that's how you win. You try to get the best players. And so I'm going to read these comments. And I knew, honestly, I'm going to shoot you straight. I knew what I was doing. I knew that I was going to get at least 15 comments from, some angry people, some people that kind of agreed with me. I knew what I was doing. I know when I post something that's going to be a hot topic, not like the story, but you know what I mean. I knew I was going to stir it up a little bit, and that's not what I go after. I don't say things that I don't believe to get people upset, but sometimes I know that what I do believe will ruffle a few feathers. First guy to respond. Less than 10 minutes after I made the post, a guy named Sean Newber. I've known him since I was younger. He's a friend of mine, not like a great friend, but a friend. He's actually more of a friend of my brother's. Anyhow, I think he's a Cardinals fan. I'm not sure. He says this. I don't think the Marlins can come anywhere close to competing money-wise with the Yanks, nor can any small or mid-market teams. Not saying there should be a salary cap, but it does make for an uneven playing field. Okay. You'll see. I'll read one of my comments that kind of, Okay, I'll just read my comment now. I said this. No, I lied. I got to read some other ones first. All right, Elwood then chimed in and says, "All is well in baseball." Okay, false, but thanks for chiming in, Elwood. Mike Pendleton says, "Eric, what a great point. Can I steal this and use it for my show? On your show last week, you said you're a Yankee fan. Don't make Elwood YouTube it." Listen, for one, I never said I was a Yankee fan. I said I love the Yankees, but I'm not a Yankee fan. I love the Yankees for what they do. I love the Yankees for how they conduct their business, and I think it's kind of a blueprint for how things should be done. If you're going to own a professional sports franchise, take a look at the Yankees and try to do that. It only makes sense. I mean, it only makes sense to me. So, let's move on. Christine Schaefer, girl I went to high school with, says they may have the biggest payroll, but don't they pay a luxury tax to teams that don't have big payrolls? Yes. Yes, they do. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get through these comments. Okay, and then the person who I think took most offense to this, and if you listen to Sports Radio 1450, then you've heard this lady. Her name's Amy Reynolds. She goes by Illini Amy. She calls in, I think she's even guest hosted a show or two. Anyhow, Amy and I are friends. We're cool. I have no problem with her. We see eye to eye on a lot of things, as a matter of fact. But apparently not this. She says this: "I gotta disagree with you big time. New York is flush with money that most other baseball cities can only dream of having. Hell, St. Louis metropolitan area only has about 400,000 residents. Do you root for the casinos over the gamblers? The casinos have more money. Obviously, they want to win the most." Well, I will say this. I do root for casinos over gamblers. Because I think that gamblers are incredibly dim-witted, simple-minded. I mean, for the most part. It's set up to lose, and people still just pump money into these things. So, yeah, I root for the casinos. Why not? Why not? Okay. Here's what I say. I said this. I can't argue that New York is a bigger market than most, but that's not the point. To own a baseball team, I actually wrote this, to own a baseball team, any team, you must be worth several $100 million, if not billion. For instance, and just going back to the first post from Sean Newber, who says the Marlins can't come anywhere close to competing money-wise with the Yanks, the Florida Marlins. I did a little research. For instance, I say, Marlins owner Jeffrey Loria is the 15th richest person in Canada, worth about $2.2 billion. That's U.S. $2.2 billion. Steinbrenner, on the other hand, posts a net worth of $1.3 billion. Oh, weird. So the Marlins can't compete with the Yankees, even though their owner is worth almost $1 billion more dollars than George Steinbrenner. And I go on to say Steinbrenner's just willing to spend more of his money on a good baseball team. It's not about the size of the market. Every baseball owner is filthy rich, and all of them can afford better players. They just choose not to spend their money. Sorry, but I'm right. Lina Amy chimes in again. Net worth and cash flow, she says, are two completely different issues. You can be worth $5 billion, but if $4.5 billion of it is tied up in property, then the person worth $2 billion but only $1 billion in property has better means for reinvesting in player salary. Okay. Well, now we're splitting hairs. And now we have to go in and see what all these people own outside of baseball. Bottom line is this. Well, hold on. I'll go on and keep reading because I'm just going to say what I already wrote. She puts another post. She wrote 3 in a row. The second one says, New York brings in far more money. They have far more people from whom to draw that money. They have Wall Street, celebrities, etc. People with more money than Midwesterners. You can be right in your own delusional world, but in the real world, you're wrong. And she writes another one. I also think it's very dangerous, she says, to equate resources available with desire to win. Okay, I had to answer now because I felt like I was being attacked. I said, my world is many things, but only occasionally is it delusional. Maybe more teams would bring in more money if they loosened up their pockets and quit putting out a consistently crappy product year after year. And they can afford to do it. These owners aren't living on ramen noodles and putting $3.57 in the gas tank of their celebrity so they can make it to the bingo hall on Friday night. If you're worth multiple billions of dollars, I don't care how much is tied up in properties or whatever. You can swing $100 million in payroll. It's not like Steinbrenner has a $1.3 billion cash wad in his front pocket. And what I was trying to say there is, okay, maybe some of these guys are worth more money, but their money's tied up in certain things. Listen, Steinbrenner's money isn't tied up 100% in the New York Yankees. This guy does other things. And that's the point I was trying to make. Well, how come the other owners have money tied up, elsewhere, but not Steinbrenner? No, he lives the same kind of life as all these guys have. They're filthy rich. They own a ton of things. These sports teams are just one of the many, kind of things that they own. And we're all a little delusional. Let me go on and read some more. She says this, which owners specifically are you calling out? Kansas City is the only one I would call cheap. Perhaps Florida, but then take a gander at the seats in Florida. They've got almost zilch people in the seats. Okay, she makes a good point. Nobody comes to the games, but you know why? Well, because when the Marlins get a good team, they blow it up immediately. As soon as they get good players, good young players, and they have a little bit of success, they blow it up. They start again from scratch. They hit reset. That is no way to keep a fan base. That's no way to treat your fans. They're not going to come support you if you consistently just get rid of every good player you have. All right, here we go. And there's more. My buddy Dave Kane, a guy I grew up with, I've known such a long time, good friend of mine, smart guy, says this. St. Louis Metro has 2.8 million people. It's the city of St. Louis that has 400,000. Here's a good article on the topic. And he leaves a link to an article which I didn't read. He says this, one must consider the incentives presented to small market team owners in producing winning teams. When a small market team competes with a large market team for a high profile free agent, the small market team would inevitably have to spend a higher percentage of its total revenue in order to win the player's services. Even if the small market owner decides to make this financial commitment, the financial returns on his investment would be less than what they would have been for the large market team. Okay, what that basically is saying is that a team in a smaller market, even though they could go after these big name guys, these big money guys, it's not a sound investment.